It can be sung in so many different ways, in so many different ragas. If you were to chant anything else which is material in nature, a material vibration, you get tired of it after a while. My Guru Maharaj used to say, just try chanting Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola for 20 minutes and see what happens. You'll find that after a while, you will get thirsty and no Coca-Cola is there. It doesn't appear before you because it is material in nature. But when you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, then the beauty of it is Krishna immediately appears on the tip of your tongue and he manifests himself in your heart. That is why we chant Krishna's names. Sometimes as you chant Krishna's names, the challenge of the mind is always there. Because the mind wants to distract you. The mind wants you to look around. The mind wants to tell you, why must you keep chanting the same thing? The mind wants to tell you, when is it going to stop? When are we going to have prasadam? Like that, the mind gives you so many reasons. But the more we hear the name, the more we should persist. Sometimes there comes a period, even in our chanting, when we may feel a bit dry. But that is not because of the name. It is very often because of the uncontrolled mind. It is the uncontrolled mind that gives us the greatest problems. And for Dhritarashtra, his mind was the greatest enemy for him. He thought that actually the Pandavas were the greatest enemies. Whole life Dhritarashtra was just looking at the Pandavas as being his mortal enemies. Some people say it was Duryodhana who was looking at the Kauravas as his mortal, to the Pandavas as his mortal enemies. But when you study Mahabharata carefully, the seed of all this discord was actually sown by Dhritarashtra. If Dhritarashtra was a saintly personality, he would have given the right sadhu sangha to his son Duryodhana, and he would have changed it. Just like when we see our children wavering, it becomes our duty as parents to give them the proper sangha. But sometimes because we are also not caught in the right sangha, we may not mean well. And that is what happened to Dhritarashtra. The amazing thing about the Bhagavad Gita is actually that Dhritarashtra started the Bhagavad Gita by asking questions. Isn't it? When you read the Gita, you find that actually the whole Gita starts with Dhritarashtra asking Sanjaya, what is happening on the battlefield? That's what he asked. But at the end of the entire Bhagavad Gita, you find that actually the last word doesn't come from Dhritarashtra. The last word of the Gita actually comes from Sanjaya. Right? It comes from Sanjaya. And it is so nice that the Bhagavad Gita starts with someone who is envious of Krishna and the Pandavas, but it ends conclusively with someone who was a great exalted devotee of Krishna, and that is Sanjaya. And so finally, when Dhritarashtra asked a very important question, and the question was actually the starting point, it was also the ending point, and that is, what happens on the battlefield? Tell me, Sanjaya, what happened on the battlefield? Finally, Sanjaya's opinion is very beautiful. Thank you. Sanjaya's opinion is very beautiful. And that's what I thought we should see today as a verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna. Yatra Partha Dhanurdhara. Yatra Partha Dhanurdhara. Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti. Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti. Juhani Mama.
Mama.
Yatra Yogeshwaro Krishna. Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha. Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti. Dhruvani Tirmatir Mama. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna. Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha. Tatra Shri Vijaya Bhuti. Dhruvani Tirmatir Mama. Please read the synonyms. Yatra, where? Yoga Ishwaraha, the master of mysticism. Krishna, Lord Krishna. Yatra, where? Partha, the son of Pritha. Dhanurdharaha, the carrier of the bow and arrow. Tatra, there. Shri, opulence. Vijayaha, victory. Bhutihi, exceptional power. Dhruva, certain. Niti, morality. Mati, Mama, my opinion. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Please repeat the translation. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Let's hear the purport. The Bhagavad Gita began with an inquiry of Dhritarashtra's. He was hopeful of the victory of his sons, assisted by great warriors like Bhishma, Drona, and Karna. He was hopeful that the victory would be on his side. But after describing the scene on the battlefield, Sanjaya told the king, "You are thinking of victory, but my opinion is that where Krishna and Arjuna are present, there will be all good fortune." He directly confirmed that Dhritarashtra could not expect victory for his side. Victory was certain for the side of Arjuna because Krishna was there. Krishna's acceptance of the post of charioteer for Arjuna was an exhibition of another opulence. Krishna is full of opulences, and renunciation is one of them. There are many instances of such renunciation, for Krishna is also the master of renunciation. The fight was actually between Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. Arjuna was fighting on behalf of his elder brother Yudhishthira. Because Krishna and Arjuna were on the side of Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira's victory was certain. The battle was to decide who would rule the world, and Sanjaya predicted that the power would be transferred to Yudhishthira. It is also predicted here that Yudhishthira, after gaining victory in this battle, would flourish more and more, because not only was he righteous and pious, but he was also a strict moralist. He never spoke a lie during his life. There are many less intelligent persons who take Bhagavad Gita to be a discussion of topics between two friends on a battlefield. But such a book cannot be a scripture. Some may protest that Krishna incited Arjuna to fight, which is immoral. But the reality of the situation is clearly stated. Bhagavad Gita is the supreme instruction in morality. The supreme instruction of morality is stated in the 9th chapter, in the 34th verse, Manmana bhava madbhaktaha. One must become a devotee of Krishna, and the essence of all religion is to surrender unto Krishna. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. The instructions of Bhagavad Gita constitute the supreme process of religion and of morality. All other processes may be purifying and may lead to this process. But the last instruction of the Gita is the last word in all morality and religion. Surrender unto Krishna. This is the verdict of the 18th chapter. From Bhagavad Gita, we can understand that to realize oneself, by philosophical speculation and by meditation is one process. But to fully surrender unto Krishna is the highest perfection. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. The path of regulated principles according to the orders of social life and according to the different courses of religion may be a confidential path of knowledge. But although the rituals of religion are confidential, meditation and cultivation of knowledge are still more confidential. And surrender unto Krishna in devotional service, in full Krishna consciousness, is the most confidential instruction. That is the essence of the 18th chapter. Another feature of Bhagavad Gita is that the actual truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. The absolute truth is realized in three features: impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Perfect knowledge of the absolute truth means perfect knowledge of Krishna. If one understands Krishna, then all the departments of knowledge are part and parcel of that understanding. Krishna is transcendental, for he is always situated in his eternal internal potency. The living entities are manifested of his energy and are divided into two classes: eternally conditioned and eternally liberated. Such living entities are innumerable, and they are considered fundamental parts of Krishna. Material energy is manifested into 24 divisions. The creation is effected by eternal time. It is created and dissolved by external energy. The manifestation of the cosmic world repeatedly becomes visible and invisible. In Bhagavad Gita, 5 principal subject matters have been discussed: the Supreme Personality of Godhead, material nature, the living entities, eternal time, and all kinds of activities. All is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. All conceptions of the Absolute Truth, impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and any other transcendental conception exist within the category of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although superficially the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity, material nature, and time appear to be different, nothing is different from the Supreme. But the Supreme is always different from everything. Lord Chaitanya's philosophy is that of inconceivable oneness and difference. This system of philosophy constitutes perfect knowledge of the Absolute Truth. The living entity in his original position is pure spirit. He is just like an atomic particle of the Supreme Spirit. Thus Lord Krishna may be compared to the sun, and the living entities to sunshine. Because the living entities are the marginal energy of Krishna, they have a tendency to be in contact either with the material energy or with the spiritual energy. In other words, the living entity is situated between the two energies of the Lord. And because he belongs to the superior energy of the Lord, he has a particle of independence. By proper use of that independence, he comes under the direct order of Krishna. Thus he attains his normal condition in the pleasure-giving potency. Jai Shri Prabhupada, transcendental purports ki Jai. What an amazing purport. In this last purport of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada practically summarizes the Gita so beautifully. And that's why I thought it would be good for us to just look at certain aspects of this shloka, which is very important. But one thing that's really important here is we should understand, as we stated earlier, that it is so nice that the last word of the Gita is coming from a devotee, and it is Sanjaya. And yet the first word of the Gita started with a materialist who is Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra wanted all the opulences of Krishna for himself and for his son. And you all know that Krishna has 6 opulences. The one opulence that Dhritarashtra could never get, even though he wanted all 6 opulences, is actually renunciation. It is the only opulence that Dhritarashtra could never get, because though he was physically blind, and though it was very clear that the Pandavas had the highest moral ground, Dhritarashtra could not renounce his kingdom. Isn't that the irony? Here is someone wanting all 6 opulences, which includes renunciation. And yet, renunciation is the one opulence that he cannot get. Why? Because it is very difficult for one who is not Krishna conscious to be renounced. Very difficult. Even when we are Krishna conscious, it is difficult to be renounced. Isn't it true? Even when we are Krishna conscious, to renounce something is difficult. We may be able to renounce fish, meat, eggs. We have taken up the 4 regulated principles, so we have renounced those things. But after coming to Krishna consciousness, we may not renounce our pride. We may not renounce our desire for name and fame. It may be difficult to renounce, so many material desires which we may not show, but which are within our hearts. Sometimes we may be doing a service every year, and then Temple President says, Prabhu, give chance now to someone else. And we say, no, it's my service. So the renunciation principle is gone. We can't because it's mine. Now only I can play the harmonium because it's mine. So there is no renunciation. So actually the most difficult principle of opulence is actually renunciation. And in this verse, and particularly in this purport, Prabhupada speaks to the principle of renunciation that Krishna exhibited throughout the entire Mahabharata war. And what was his principle? That principle of opulence was his renunciation to become a charioteer. A charioteer. Because you will understand that being a charioteer was considered a very menial service on the battlefield. And it is not like Arjuna could tell Krishna, oh dear Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, please turn right. It's not going to happen in the war. Because arrows are flying at him, he is shooting arrows, he has to dodge arrows, he can't say Krishna kindly turn, Krishna turn left, he can't speak. So traditionally what would charioteers be doing? They would be at the beck and call of the lead archer. And so to give him directions, the archer would have to kick the shoulders of the charioteer. Right shoulder means you turn right, left shoulder you turn left. If you kick between the shoulder blades, go straight. And so Krishna was being kicked every day in the Mahabharata war for 18 days. 18 days. He did not take medical leave. He didn't take time off. He took nothing. Every day he was prepared to be kicked and to be summoned, to be shouted. Because in battlefield, it is a roar that's going on. You think the children are loud? Go to the battlefield. That's much louder. Right? Much louder. And so on the battlefield, you cannot hear. You can't shout. That's why you keep kicking people. And even if you were to talk to someone, you can't talk in very nice language. You have to shout at them. So the truth of the battlefield of Kurukshetra was not a romantic notion of what we see today as devotional service. Sitting down beautifully in a house, wonderful deities, right? Wonderful devotees, good sound system. Everything is so nice. But on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, devotional service was playing out very differently. Very differently. But Krishna was showing us the principle of renunciation. And that principle is probably the most important principle. Because without renunciation in devotional service, it is very difficult to actually serve Krishna. If we have an ounce of pride in our heart, that ounce of pride becomes a burden of weight as a barrier between us and Krishna. It doesn't allow us the right to chant with humility. It's very difficult. And therefore, Krishna's renunciation is considered very powerful in Bhagavad Gita. Very powerful. And that's why here, when you read about Krishna, Prabhupada makes special mention that where you have Krishna, right, and where you have Arjuna, then all power, all opulence, all morality, all victory is yours. Because of Krishna's great show of renunciation. And therefore Prabhupada writes in the Gita also, in the purport here, that Bhagavad Gita should not be approached as a form of philosophical speculation. It should not. And it doesn't mean that if we know 100 over shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, therefore we know the meaning of Bhagavad Gita. Even a parrot can repeat Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada has said that. Even a parrot can repeat Bhagavad Gita. Pandits can repeat Bhagavad Gita much better than all of us combined. They can start and they can end the whole Gita. But whether or not we have ingested the meaning of the Gita into our lives, that is what Krishna wants. You know, in Mahaprabhu's Leela, you remember that Mahaprabhu was, I think he was in, Prabhu, you can come here, this place. I think in Mahaprabhu's Leela, later if more devotees come, Prabhus, you can come forward.
Yeah.
I'm quite fine. You can come and sit here also, that's fine. Sometimes we have crowded places, right? Devotees are practically on every place except the Vyasasana. So it's okay, you can come as close as you want. I'm not going to do anything to you. So the point here is that Krishna, the Leela I was going to tell you, Mahaprabhu was in South India. And if you recall, he was traveling with the devotees. Halfway through, he came to this temple where there was an illiterate Brahmana. Now this Brahmana was illiterate. He couldn't read, and much less write. But everybody was saying that this Brahmana was always reading the Gita. He was always having a Gita with him. And every time he read the Gita, so to speak, he would have tears in his eyes. So some of the Brahmanas from the community would mock him because they all knew he couldn't read. So if you can't read, why are you crying? And why are you holding the Bhagavad Gita? Moreover, when Mahaprabhu saw the Brahmana, he realized that he was holding the Gita upside down because he didn't know what was right side or what was upside. So Mahaprabhu approached the Brahmana and he said, "Dear sir, this is coming, the conversation that I give you is coming from the story that Prabhupada gave. So the way Prabhupada speaks it is very beautiful." So Mahaprabhu then asked the Brahmana, "Dear sir, I have heard that you are illiterate. Yet why is it that you are trying to read the Gita? And why is it that because you can't read the Gita is even upside down? What is the value of you reading the Gita?" Which is a very important question. But the Brahmana said something very nice. The Brahmana said that I am not the one who wants to read the Gita because I can't read the Gita. But my spiritual master has ordered me to read the Gita. And though I have told him that I am incapable of reading the Gita, he has nevertheless ordered me to read the Gita. So I need to follow the order of my spiritual master because I have faith that if my spiritual master requests me to do something, he will give me the requisite realization at the end of the sincere attempt to do so. This is very important. Even though I may not be qualified, he will give me that impact. So therefore, I am standing here every day and I'm trying my best to follow my spiritual master's instructions. Mahaprabhu said, "That's very good. But why are you having tears in your eyes? Are you crying because you cannot read the Gita?" And the illiterate Brahmana said, "No, because every time I look at the Gita, by the mercy of my spiritual master, I am able to envision that beautiful scene where Lord Krishna is the charioteer of Arjuna and how the Lord was so renounced in his opulence that he was so merciful to Arjuna that he wanted to be with Arjuna throughout the battle. He did not come there as a supreme personality of Godhead, but he came there as just an ordinary menial charioteer. When I see that vision in my heart, then the tears of joy come into my heart. That is what I feel. So when Srila Prabhupada stated that, this is how he stated. When the Brahmana stated this point, Mahaprabhu went up to him and embraced him. Transcendental embrace. And he then declared to all the Brahmanas who assembled and who could read very well and who knew all the shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, that I declare today that this Brahmana has truly understood and realized the Bhagavad Gita in all its opulence, in all its divinity. Why? Because he has ingested the spirit of the Gita. That's what Prabhupada is saying in the purport. Prabhupada is saying that if we really want to approach the Bhagavad Gita, we must approach it in the right spirit. If you don't put spirit into the ritual of reading the Gita, then the ritual of reading the Gita remains a ritual. But if you put spirit into ritual, then it becomes spiritual. Right? You put spirit into ritual, then it becomes spiritual. So everything that we do can become a ritual because we do it every day. We read every day, we chant every day, we sing every day. But if you put your heart and your spirit into it, that same endeavor that appeared to be a ritual yesterday can be transformed into spiritual tomorrow or even now. It can. It can change your life. because you're no longer seeing it as just an exercise or something which is theoretical. That is the difference. So Prabhupada, he started the Gita in his introduction telling us how to approach the Gita. And he ends the Gita with the same mood of how to approach the Gita. And if we have that mood and we remember the illiterate Brahmana, we will realize that no material qualification is needed for bhakti. You know Hanumanji, right? Hanumanji has this beautiful prayer in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Na janmanunam mahato na saubhagam na vang na buddhi na kritistesha hetoho tairyat vrishishtan apino vanaukashas chakara sakye bata lakshmana grajaha. It's a beautiful prayer in the 5th canto. It's in the residence of Jambudvip. They offer the prayers. 5th canto, 18th chapter. And there Hanumanji is praying to the Lord, Lord Ram. He's saying that, my dear Lord, I have no high birth. So actually in one sense I'm not qualified. Na janma nunam. I don't have high birth. I don't have high parentage. Then he says that I don't have proper intelligence. I don't have high IQ. I'm in the body of a vanara or a monkey. Then he says that I don't have intellect, I don't have a high parentage, I don't even speak very well. My speaking is like gibberish. It is not human language. It's in one sense vanara language or monkey language. I can't even invite you to my house, Lord Ram, because I don't even have a proper house. Night to night I live in one tree, then I move to another tree. So which house to invite you to? Like today we came to the house because the house is here. And tomorrow, we come back here, the house is also here. Whether we invited or not, the house is here. But the point is, Hanumanji doesn't have a house. So he's saying, I don't have any qualification. No birth, no beauty, no high parentage, right? No highly intellectual studies. And I don't even have a house. Despite all my disqualifications, Chakara Sakye Bata Lakshmana Grajaha, O elder brother of Lakshmana. He addresses Lord Ram as Lakshmana Grajaha. And he says, O Lakshmana, you are so kind. O brother of Lakshmana, you are so kind that you have kindly accepted me as your friend, even though I have no qualifications. So actually you can find that the qualifications are not needed. And not only are qualifications materially not necessary, but even as devotees, when we are given these qualifications or these great opulences, we are not interested in them. That is also very important. Vritasur, he himself stated very nicely, Nanaka Prishtam, Nachaparamishtam, Na Sarva Bhaumam, Narasadhipatyam, Na Yoga Siddhir, Apunar Bhavamva, Samanjasadva, Virahaya Kamshe. In Vritasur's prayers, Vritasu says that I don't want dominion over the middle earth, which is middle planetary system, lower planetary system, or even Dhruva Loka. I don't even want Swarga Loka. I don't even want cessation of birth and death, if it means that I do not have an opportunity to serve your lotus feet. This is the mood of a devotee. So actually for devotional service, what is needed? There is nothing really, no material paraphernalia is needed. And sometimes we are attracted to the material paraphernalia rather than the devotional service. We feel the circumstances must be right, and then I will do bhakti. And if the circumstances are not right, then the situation is not favorable to bhakti. But that is not how bhakti operates. Bhakti operates in favorable and non-favorable situation. Arjuna was on the battlefield. That is not a favorable situation to render devotional service. It's not. That's why initially he wanted to become sadhu and he wanted to go to the cave. But Krishna said, no going to cave for you. You fight on the battlefield. But just remember one thing when you're on the battlefield. Mayai vaite nihata purva evam nimitta matra bhavya savya sachi. You are savya sachi. You can shoot arrows very well. But I've got news for you. By my arrangement, all who must die on the battlefield have been marked for that. And those who will survive, they will survive. By my arrangement, not your arrangement, Arjuna. So then what is the value of Arjuna? What is the value of all of us then? We become instruments in his hands. That is the spirit of the Gita. That is the meaning of surrender. Surrender means to become instrument. A knife in the hand of a surgeon will heal. A knife in the hand of a thief can harm. But the knife itself has no liability. Isn't it true? Nobody prosecutes the knife. Nobody praises the knife. Knife is just knife. Become the instrument. It doesn't matter how we are used by Krishna, but Krishna knows exactly how to use us. When we have that mood and take up bhakti, then the opulence of renunciation becomes automatically natural. That is the secret to obtaining the opulence of renunciation. When we learn to become instruments. When we don't become instruments, then we think we are controllers. This is mine, that is mine. Then it becomes very difficult on the battlefield of life to become renounced. Very difficult. So you see, Bhagavad Gita is so practical on this point actually. Very, very practical. And that's why when Arjuna and Duryodhana, they heard, those days news didn't travel so fast. We didn't have WhatsApp, Instagram and all that. But they heard that news came from Dwarka that Krishna had given two options. One, either you have me as charioteer, or two, you have all the soldiers from Dwarka, and they are 1 million, and they are very powerful. Duryodhan jumped on his chariot and he just rushed to Dwarka Dham because he wanted the 1 million soldiers. What's the point of having Krishna as a charioteer? Just one charioteer, what's the point? No value. Strategically, materially, I need this army. Then we will defeat the Pandavas. Arjuna also traveled very quickly from Hastinapur to Dwarka. And they both arrived at about the same time. They were both shown into the quarters of Krishna where Krishna was lying down in Dwarka Dham. And they had a choice. One could sit next to Krishna, one could sit at his feet. Duryodhan jumped ahead of Arjuna and he sat just next to Krishna. And Arjuna sat at the lotus feet of Krishna. Now, when Krishna woke up, when you wake up, first thing you don't turn around to see who's next to you. You actually look forward and then you turn. If you think about it, that's how we all do. Duryodhana, I don't know what he was thinking, but he forgot that, you see. But actually it wasn't what he forgot. It was his mood. That was wrong. So he thought he's closer to Krishna that way. But Prabhupada has said, that even a mosquito is very close to a king, isn't it? When a mosquito sits on the lap of a king, actually the mosquito is closer to the king than all the subjects. But it doesn't mean the mosquito is very palatable to the king. The king considers the mosquito a nuisance. So being physically close to the Lord doesn't mean that we are spiritually close to him. So Arjuna was sitting at the lotus feet of the Lord, which is actually the place where we should be. And so when the Lord opened his eyes, he saw Arjuna first. And he said, Arjuna, so nice to see you. Then Duryodhana went, and then Krishna turned, oh yes, Duryodhana, you are also here. So then he said, you both must have come to ask for what I can give you. So, because I saw Arjuna first, I'm going to ask him. Duryodhana said, but I came first, and I sat next to you closer. But he said, but he's younger, so give him a chance. So now Duryodhana was in anxiety, because he was thinking, if he asks for the 1 million army, then I'm gone. Because he thought naturally he will ask for that. What will he ask for? He won't ask for Krishna. So in the end, Duryodhana was pleasantly surprised that Arjuna said, I want you, Krishna, as my charioteer. And Arjuna and Duryodhana could not contain himself, Mahabharata says. He was already jumping up and down in joy. And he said, thank you very much, Arjuna. Thank you, Krishna. He did not stay a moment longer and he left Dwarka. That was it. So Krishna was curious. He smiled at Arjuna and said, Arjuna, don't you think from a strategic point of view what you did was foolish? Why did you want me? And Arjuna replied so nicely, Krishna, you are the source of all powers. You are the source of all that emanates in this world. The source of that army's power is actually you. It has nothing to do with the army. He can take the whole army if he wants, but I only want you, my Lord. And I don't want you because I want to win the battle. I want you because as long as you are with me, I know I will be protected. Protected in my consciousness. Whatever happens in the battle, my Lord, that is up to you. I am very peaceful. That's why in the Mahabharata war, whenever there was any problems, Krishna always found that Arjuna was sleeping very well. One time, if you remember, Bhishma Dev took the terrible vow that next day he will kill Arjuna. And that night, Krishna could not sleep. He was transcendently worried. He was having transcendental insomnia. And he was thinking, if I am not able to sleep, how much Arjuna must be thinking of what will happen tomorrow, because it's Bhishma Dev. So in the middle of the night, Krishna walked over to Arjuna's tent. And when he reached there, to his surprise, Arjuna was in deep sleep. So Krishna got a bit upset. He woke him up and said, man, I'm staying up for you. How can you sleep like that? And Arjuna said, the reason I'm sleeping well is because I know you will stay up for me. Because you are my protector. And you will always protect me. That's why I have a good night's sleep. And in that way, Arjuna showed Krishna how fixed he was at the lotus feet of the Lord. And that is why in today's verse, Sanjaya's opinion is supreme. He says, wherever Krishna and Arjuna are. See, it is not just Krishna. The opulence of Arjuna is in his surrender to Krishna. That is the opulence of Arjuna. Arjuna renounced the world. He renounced everything for Krishna. He renounced his own desire not to fight for Krishna. That is the greatest renunciation. There is no fun in renunciation when you can renounce without difficulty. Always remember that. Renouncing without difficulty is not renunciation. Renunciation implies there must be difficulty. Then it is renunciation. If you say, I'm going to renounce $10 to you, but I have 100,000 in my bank account, I'm not feeling the pinch. I'm not very renounced. But if I gave you $10 and I only had $10 in the bank, now that is renunciation. You see the point? That is renunciation. That's why I'm looking at Radhanath Maharaj. Radhanath Maharaj made a very good statement many years ago. He said, Krishna doesn't see how much money you are giving. He sees how much you are keeping. Because what you keep is a measure of your renunciation, not what you are apparently giving. You see the point? So that's why Krishna and Arjuna are exalted in this verse. Because wherever there is Krishna, right, who is Yogeshwara, he is the master of the mystics. That means Krishna can change anything. Krishna can make 24 hours of your time, Prabhu's Matajis, into 48 hours. Sometimes we say, Prabhu, I have no time to do my rounds. But if you believe Krishna is Yogeshwar, he will give you time. He will give you time. Your 24 hours will become 48 hours. Radhanath Maharaj again said something interesting. He said, the busiest devotees are the ones who have the most time for Krishna. That's a beautiful statement, isn't it? The busiest devotees are the ones who have the most time for Krishna. They will never say, sorry Mataji, sorry Prabhu, don't have time for service. They always have time for service, even though they are up to their necks with service. Because Krishna is Yogeshwar. He can open up time, even if it appears like time is only 24 hours. That is his opulence. That is why he is Yogeshwar. Then, he is not only master of mystic, but he is the master of all opulences. This is very important. And only Krishna has these opulences. Only Krishna is fully strong. Only Krishna is fully famous. Only Krishna has all beauty. Only Krishna has all renunciation. Only Krishna has all knowledge. And only Krishna has all wealth. We have little bit here and there, but only he has everything. And because Arjuna is with him, all the opulences of Krishna are found in Arjuna. That is Krishna's blessings. So we don't have to run after these opulences separately, Prabhus and Matajis. By performing sincere devotional service, these things extraneously, without difficulty, without separate endeavor, they will come. They will come on their own. We don't have to worry. You know, it is like the story of Akbar and Birbal. I've said this sometimes. You know Akbar and Birbal, isn't it? So Birbal was a great devotee of Lord Ram. And wherever he went, whatever time, 7 o'clock sharp, oh, it's 7:45 now, 7 o'clock sharp, he would sit down and he would chant the names of Lord Ram. He was a great Lord Ram Bhakta. One time, he and Akbar were traveling incognito, disguised. And they were going around the forest. And then they were looking at the kingdom. But they entered into a deep forest and time was coming for him to sit down to chant. So Akbar said, aren't you hungry? It's late. I will come out of the forest and find a place and get some prasadam. Come with me. And Birbal said, no. It is time for me to sit down and chant the Lord's name. I'm going to chant. After that, let's see what Krishna wants or what Lord Ram wants. So then Akbar said, you're not being practical, man. You have to be practical. Never mind, I will go. So with great difficulty, he came out of the forest and he got to a village. With great difficulty, he convinced them he was Akbar and he asked for some prasad and he took it. And then as he was leaving, he was thinking, my poor friend Birbal, foolish fellow sitting in the middle of the forest chanting the names of Lord Ram. Does he think that prasadam is going to drop from the air? Let me bring some for him. And so he takes a long trek back. When he comes back, Birbal has just finished chanting Lord Ram's names, opens his eyes and prasadam is in front of him. And then Akbar said, you see, you foolish boy, sitting here and chanting, you're not going to get prasadam. If not for my big-heartedness, you would not have got it. And he said, Ananyas chintayantu mam, ye janaha paryupasate, tesham nitya abhiyuktanam, yogakshemam vahamyaham. He said, Krishna says, to those who are exclusively devoted to me, I give them what they lack and I preserve what they have. You will never get a greater guarantee than that in the whole three worlds. And Birbal said, my dear Lord is so kind that because I sat down chanting his names, he made you travel very far, take your prasad, he gave you the common sense to think about me and bring the prasad to me. I did not have to move, but it was arranged by Krishna. So it's a very simple illustration, but it shows us that when we are with Krishna, all opulences naturally will follow. We don't have to run after that. We just run after bhakti, and that is more than sufficient. And where there is opulence, there will be victory. And what is this victory that we are talking about? Not material victory. Materially, sometimes we are victorious, sometimes we are defeated. But Bhagavatam says in this material world, we are always defeated. Isn't it true? You cannot conquer birth. You cannot conquer death. In between, you will fall sick. And if you're fortunate enough, you may become old. But in all four, there is no control. None of you selected your parents. Anyone here selected your parents? No. You were just born to your parents. That's it. That was Krishna's selection. And the children who were born to us, they are also Krishna's selection. We had no part in birth. And if you ask the mothers who gave birth, and for all the children here, you did not come out smiling and laughing. You came out crying. Because that's the nature of the world you're introduced to. And Bhagavatam says, when you are not crying and you come into the world, the doctor gives you a good slap in the back. And when you cry, they all laugh. That is what Bhagavatam tells us. So birth is not easy. Ask the mothers, whether you have the epidural or without the epidural, it's not easy at all. It is a life-changing event. Death, who can speak about death? When death comes, Prabhupada says, it will be exceptionally painful. Except for those whose heart is at the lotus feet of the Lord, death by itself is very difficult. And disease, we all know, none of us are free of disease. And as we grow older, our bodies are changing. My Guru Maharaj used to say that walking up the steps when he was young was nothing. Now taking one step up is like climbing the Himalayas. That was how he saw old age. So actually, what do we have? There is no victory in this material world. But the victory of the Gita is always to be 100% engaged in Krishna's service. That is our victory. Vritasur knew that Indra was going to win because Indra had been blessed by Krishna to win the war. But Vritasur saw that victory as hollow. He thought, let me be killed by Indra. But while being killed by Indra on the battlefield, let me remember Krishna. And as I remember Krishna, I will go back to Krishna. And what happened to Indra? He won the battle, but he lost the war. Because even after he won the battle, after killing Vritasur, he had to pay for the sin of killing Vritasur. And for 1,000 years he was running around, chased by sin personified, in a form of a naked old lady who smelled like rotten fish, Bhagavatam says. And she chased him everywhere. And for 1,000 years he was running around. Where was Vritasur? He was back home, back to Godhead. That is victory. So victory is hollow in this material world without Krishna. And the last point is morality. Morality is actually victory. Because morality, Prabhupada says, for us morality is very simple. Whatever Krishna designates as matam, injunction, that is our morality. If Krishna told Arjuna not to fight, that is his morality. If Krishna told him you have to fight, that became his morality. If our duty is to wake up for Mangalarati and chant Krishna's names, that is our morality. If our duty is to follow the 4 regulative principles, that is our duty and that is our morality. So our morality is not based on what is moral or immoral in the material world. It is based on what is moral according to scriptural injunctions. Look at 331 of Bhagavad Gita when you have time. Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto anasuyanto tepi muchanti karmabhihi. Krishna says, those who follow my instructions with full faith, shraddhavanto, with full faith, and anasuyanto, without envy. These are the 2 pillars to follow the instructions of Krishna. Follow it with faith and follow it without envy. To them, they will attain liberation. This is our morality. And when we have morality, when we have opulence, when we have victory, then there will be matir mama. There will be what we call bhutir. There will be awesome, extraordinary power. And this power was demonstrated by Krishna. But the important thing to realize is, Krishna demonstrates the power through his devotees. Because Arjuna was the most powerful warrior on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But after the battlefield of Kurukshetra finished, what happened to Arjuna? If you remember, there's a very nice shloka, 1.5.21 of Srimad Bhagavatam. You can repeat with me. Tad Vaidanus Ta Ishava Sarato Hayaste Soham Rati Tripatayo Yata Anamanti Sarvam Shamena Tadabu Ashat Ishariktam Bhasman Hutam Kuhukarudham Iruptam Isha. It's a beautiful verse. In that verse, Arjuna says, I have the same bow, I have the same arrows, I have the same chariot and the same horses. For God's sakes, I'm still the same Arjuna. But despite having everything that was the same during the battlefield of Kurukshetra, I have lost all my strength. After the war, Arjuna could not even defeat the infidels who came to kidnap the queens of Dwarka. He could not. And in this shloka of 1:15:21, he states that point. And Prabhupada in that shloka says, we are living on borrowed plumes, Plumes. In other words, we take the beautiful feathers of the peacock and we put it on us, and everyone says we look beautiful. But the beauty is derived from the peacock. So we may look very powerful in whatever we are doing, in services, in classes, in kirtan, in anything. But the power, the source of that extraordinary power is Krishna. The moment we accept it, that power can be used in his service. When we cannot accept that he is the source of our power, we will lose that power. Even the great devotees acknowledge it. How much more must we acknowledge it? Hiranyakashipu thought he had it all wrapped up in his insurance package with Brahma, isn't it? Remember his insurance package with Brahma? Right? I cannot be killed day, night, cannot be killed by weapons, cannot be killed by animals, man, woman, living beings, the works. He covered everything. But in the end, when Nrsimhadev decided to break everything, he did it excellently. Isn't it? Nails are not weapons. Put him on his lap, neither up nor down. Put him in between the corridor, neither in nor out, neither in heaven nor on earth. It was perfect. Perfect. What does this show? The extraordinary power that Hiranyakashipu had, the origin of that is also Krishna. Isn't that what Prahlad Maharaj said towards the last point of this? My dear Father, the source of my power is the source of your power also, and the source of everyone's power. That is the meaning of extraordinary power. This power of Krishna is so powerful that he can lend it to us. But we must understand it is lent. We must understand it is borrowed. Those who understand it is borrowed, they will be victorious. They will truly be renounced, and they will be peaceful in their devotion service. Jai Grantaraj Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudeva ki Jai. Thank you, Prabhus, Matajis, for your time. Thank you for being patient. Are there any questions? Are there any realizations? Are there any violent objections?